wearing this outfit in this setting? Hear me out. See, I'm a huge fan of dungeons. No, not those kind. Get your head out of the gutter. I'm a big fan of dungeons. And it's really interesting to think about how adventurers and heroes might take different approaches to defeating enemies, solving puzzles, and avoiding traps. But it's also really interesting to think about the poor person who has to reset all of those traps, replace all of that treasure, and clean up the mess for any adventurers who might not make it out alive. That's where Goblin Cleanup comes in. This is a very interesting game that I found. It is a free demo, not an open beta, and definitely not a part of the Steam Fest. And it is a significant change of pace from a lot of the other games that I've been playing recently, so I figured I'd give it a try. It was giving off a lot of power cleaner simulator vibes, or maybe Viscera cleanup, crime scene cleanup details, something like that. Except it was significantly less frustrating looking, and way more interesting as far as its mechanics and settings. You play as a goblin, whose job it is to clean up a dungeon. Reset it so that another set of adventurers can come through and meet their doom at the hands of various traps and puzzles. This includes tasks such as cleaning up bloodstains, picking up any chunks of meat that you might find, replacing all of the displaced furniture and decoration, filling up various magical devices with mana, and putting any missing treasure back in their treasure chests. And it's really, really interesting, very fun. It's the type of game that I can see a lot of streamers putting on in the background as they talk about different things, sort of like a visual aid for their podcast. I've actually played around with this idea in the past with thinking that I could do the same thing with something like Death Stranding, but that didn't work out so well. This game, on the other hand, fits that perfectly. Not only is it very interesting in the way that you use different things like a slime to mop things, or a mimic to dispose of anything that you don't want, it's also very, very satisfying, because the dungeon is every bit as lethal to you as it is to the adventurers that came before you. So you have to avoid those same traps. And also, because your task includes resetting puzzles and those traps, you kind of have to solve the dungeon in reverse, which is something that I would have never thought of myself. It's very, very clever and very satisfying to do. I had the biggest smile on my face every time that we completed a level. Granted, I've only done 2 of them so far, but they've been fun to do. Oh, actually, no, I've done 3. I can see this idea having lots of potential. I'm imagining stuff like a team mode where one group plays as the adventurers, going through the dungeon, trying to make a biggest mess as they possibly can. And then the group of cleaners goes through to see how quickly that they can clean up that mess, and they each have different times. And then you switch roles to see which team can make the bigger mess and which team can clean it up the fastest. Or a mode where you have to clean up under a time limit. But even if you actually don't manage to clean up in time, you can still continue as long as you've cleaned up the areas section by section. So you clean up the first room, second, third, fourth, but if you run out of time, the adventurers have to go through those rooms before they actually catch up to you, and then you mess up the cycle. So stuff like that. It could get incredibly interesting, and I love the fact that this idea is being played with. It's also really, really fun to go into a messy room and try and figure out just what happened in here. But for a fire trap, this thing did produce an awful lot of blood. Do people bleed when they're burning?
I mean, pretty sure they can, but I'm pretty sure usually their skin makes it impossible to continue bleeding for more than a few seconds.
That means that I predict that this trap isn't actually working as intended. So what actually happened was they weren't set on fire. The spikes on this moving thing actually impaled them and or cut them. That's how they died.
Probably assume it's
Shut up, Adachi. We've got no clues about the perp. We don't even have a sus because the sec with a mo's got a perf L.
Sir, what are you even—
Shut up, Adachi!
So what do we know about the case so far?
The perp is probably in Inaba. Case closed. Let's get drunk.
You get to play a detective a little bit. And that gives me an idea for one of the games that we'll be playing next week, which I'm super excited for. The idea of solving the mystery of how someone met their tragic end. Sometimes the answer is a little bit more complicated than it seems, but only one truth prevails. Anyway, a lot of these cleanup type games, they're chill in nature and on paper, but they can sometimes be perceived as boring. When there's not enough going on, or when the person who's playing them isn't engaging enough, they can be very boring. So I'm very curious to know, what do you think about games like this? Power Wash Simulator, Viscera Cleanup, Crime Scene Cleanup, etc. I'd love to hear about it. That's going to do it for me. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in another video.